So if you can get a believable promise and a solid, unique methodology, unique mechanism, that's what will push them 90 to 95% of the way to, okay, let's have a legitimate sales conversation about how we can make this work. So I'm a marketing buff, and the reason why I came up with this was because I was struggling to get clients in my own agency with my long form webinar. And so I was reading marketing books. Bob Bly had a book called How to Create an Irresistible Offer. Mm-hmm. And this was how the light bulb moment came off for me. And so in the book, it's right in the front. He has a chart that basically says the correlation of your customer acquisition cost is directly related to whether your content is more offer-based or content-based. Mm-hmm. Makes sense, like saying it out loud, but as people who study marketing, we get so hung up on like marketing funnels and all these things that we can do that we end up like pushing our offer too far downstream in the funnel. And for people who are just launching, just starting up, like you don't really need marketing at this point. What you really need is to validate your offer. And so the very first thing that we do in the mini webinar, actually the very first thing that we do in the ad, it all starts with the ad, is everything is offer centric. So like we are making a promise and we're making a direct offer on the front end. And so
could you give an example?
Yeah. So the light bulb moment that went off for me was when I was literally laying awake trying to figure out where I was going to get my next lead. And my funnel wasn't working. And so what I did was, rather than promoting like free training, like, hey, sign up for my free training, learn about webinars, and at the end, that whole song and dance, I said, you know what? I'm just going to be direct. I'm going to make them an offer, and I'm going to say, listen, if I offered, and I developed what I called the power offer, right? And I said, if I offered to write you a high converting sales webinar, within the next 24 hours without you needing to know what to say or how to say it, so you can enroll customers or clients now, would you take me up on that offer? Now it's a butchered version of what I ended up coming up with. Sure. But the framework is, have your call out, which, hey, attention course creators or marketers, right? Mm-hmm. If I offered to provide you with some sort of benefit without a certain obstacle, would you take me up on that offer? And what it does is it changes who you get in your funnel, right? There's a time and place for a lead generation funnel, and then there's a time and place for an offer validation funnel. And that took my application cost from like $450 per application down to $30 to $40 overnight.
Wow.
So that was kind of the light bulb moment for me. And like, as I say it out loud, to me, it just makes so much, it's kind of like one of those, like, duh, you make an offer, like you should produce a lower cost per acquisition, but I was studying so much marketing. I was getting wrapped up in all this marketing that I kept pushing my offer down the funnel. And that's really where we've taken this over the past 3 years. We're helping people create offers, make more offers on a consistent basis, validate their offer. Because if you don't have a valid offer, like, all the marketing in the world isn't going to help you. Like, if people don't want what you have to offer, like, that's stage one, in my opinion. I'm not trying to rewrite the rule book of marketing. I'm just trying to put it in the right order for people who are struggling to generate leads. And so really with the mini webinar, even the same framework, like the first thing we do in the mini webinar is we repeat our offers, because we want buyer leads. We want them to know, like, I'm looking for clients. And that's a lot of times that's how I start my mini webinars. Like, hey, I'm looking for clients. Mm-hmm. We're going to help you X, Y, and Z. If that makes sense, keep listening. So I'm all about sales before marketing in this type of framework.
Interesting. And what do you think causes the lower CPA?
Well, if I were to use my example, when I was with my long form webinar, it was costing me about $450 per application, not even per customer, just per application. Mm-hmm. I was overeducating, right? What I learned when I flipped the sales sequence on its head was that I had a massive audience of people who, number one, already knew about webinars. They already wanted a webinar. They didn't need educating on what was so important about webinars. They just needed it done.
Right.
And that's the single biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to validate their offer. They're trying to go after a market that they feel is uneducated. But I'd say in 90 to 95% of all markets that I've dealt with in my coaching students and with my clients, like there's always a segment of your market that has either tried something and failed it, and that's who you need to go after first, because they need the least amount of educating to be convinced on whether or not they should work with you. And that was the biggest aha moment. And so your cost per acquisition is going to go up with the more educating they need to get to the conversion hole. But I promise you, anyone listening right now, I would be willing to bet at least $1,000 that you've got a segment that needs very little educating to make a decision on whether or not they should work with you, or at least entertain having a conversation with you.
That's very cool. What are some of the key takeaways that you've had now that you've been doing this for the period of time that you have? What are the things that you've really identified as, I thought this, but it turned out that?
Yeah. Great question. The funny thing is that so many people that I talk to when they're learning about this process and they're learning about launching a high ticket offer or launching a course or, trying to build a mini webinar, is they think they need to put more marketing in front of it. And I said, listen, like, if people have a pain, like if they have a desire to get something, if your promise is good enough and it's going to compel them to stop on Facebook or stop wherever they are to read it, like your promise is what's going to sell it, get them like 90% of the way to the hole, right? You make a great promise, they're going to be interested. And then once they're interested, then they're going to start to do a little bit more research. Like, number one, they want to believe in your system or your methodology, because your promise is not your system, right? So you make that promise, and then they're going to be like, okay, either they believe you or they don't believe you, because you can oversell your promise and it will push people away. So it has to be that delicate balance of like making a promise that's believable and realistic. So assuming you make that promise, then they're going to want to do a little bit more digging, like, okay, yes, I'm interested in that promise, but how does it work? Like they're going to have a healthy source of skepticism. And really that's where your unique mechanism comes in. So the only thing that we really focus on at that point is like, they want to know what makes you different. What makes your methodology different from everything else that I've seen, because they have seen something else. They've seen other things. And so we focus on that. And that's like the two core elements that we focus on to get them to at least book a call with you. So if you can get a believable promise and a solid, unique methodology, unique mechanism, that's what will push them 90 to 95% of the way to, okay, let's have a legitimate sales conversation about how we can make this work. And so I guess the thing to answer your question, like what's the number one thing that I've kind of, the aha moments that I've seen over and over again, is like, sometimes I don't believe that that's all they need. And it just keeps happening. And it sounds weird to say that out loud, but we've done hundreds of offers now at this point, and it's an incredibly fast way to launch. It's an incredibly quick framework.
And then you go to always to application as opposed to like sending them to a website?
Yep. So what we do is we have the power offer ad, which is to attract buyer type leads, right? So they're pre-framed, at least willing to listen to an offer. Then they watch a quick 10 to 15 minute mini webinar, which really just gives them your process and your methodology. And then it's an application to a phone call. Yep. And we'll do some in between there. We'll do some pre-selling or some pre-qualification steps, but that's the high level overview. Yep.
Okay. And do you do anything to help liquidate the ad cost on the front, like offers before the webinar comes on or anything like that? Like once they register for the webinar, do you offer anything for sale?
Yeah. So essentially what we do is when we are first launching, like when we're testing an offer and we're helping somebody launch a brand new offer from scratch, we won't do any sort of liquidation, right? Because the only thing that we want to focus on, our sole focus is, do these people want this offer or not? Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to create a high-end offer first, like a $5,000 to $10,000 offer. And we're going to sell, that's going to be the very first thing that we sell. And it's going to be add to application to call, right? That's the first thing that we do. Once we get to say $30,000 to $50,000 per month, okay, great. Offer has been validated. Like now we've got cash coming in the bank. We're cash flowing. Now we start to work our way backwards within the marketing funnel, right? So then whether that's building a long form webinar to sell their like DIY program, like an automated webinar, we might build that. We might do, low ticket offers or tripwires to help liquidate the ad costs. I mean, I'm running one right now for that exact same reason. It pushes them to my back end mini webinar offer. All that strategy kind of, we take it on a case by case basis, but to start, no, we are not going to, we typically don't do a self-liquidating offer to recoup the ad costs. The phone call is really where we're making our first initial sales.